Hey there, and welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
This is where we grab a whole bunch of sources, stuff people send in, research, articles, and we really dig in.
Try and pull out the key stuff, the interesting bits.
Exactly. Get you informed, find those connections, maybe, spark some ideas. So today, we're diving into something pretty amazing, actually. We're exploring how specific neurological symptoms, things patients actually experience, might link up directly to identifiable spots in the brain.
Yeah, it's like using symptoms as breadcrumbs almost, following them back to the source.
Right. Not just problems, but actual clues.
And the sources we have today are fascinating. They detail different symptoms and then pinpoint potential brain areas involved in each case. It's almost like mapping the brain's functions based on what goes wrong, or differently.
Totally. So our mission, let's say, is to unpack these links. Try to get a feel for what these different brain bits might be doing, and see how these symptoms really can unlock secrets about, well, the brain's layout.
The geography of function, you could say?
I like that. Okay, let's unpack this. So we'll work through the source material, looking at these different symptom sets and where the sources suggest they originate.
Sounds good.
Let's kick off with something, maybe a bit eerie. A patient experiencing a strong sense of déjà vu.
Ah, that feeling, like you've absolutely been there, done that, even though you know you haven't.
Exactly, that sort of inappropriate familiarity.
Right. So the source connects this, especially when it happens alongside things like repetitive lip smacking, automatic movements.
Okay.
It links that to the temporal lobe.
The temporal lobe. And it gets specific, right? Mentions the inferior temporal gyrus and the middle temporal gyrus. Just quickly, for anyone picturing it, a gyrus is like a ridge on the brain's surface.
Yeah, one of the folds.
Uh-huh.
And a sulcus is the groove in between.
Got it. So the temporal lobe, why there for déjà vu and lip smacking?
Well, the temporal lobe is huge for processing senses, forming memories, retrieving memories, and also some of these automatic behaviors. So that feeling of weird familiarity or automatic stuff like lip smacking, it really fits with unusual activity or maybe some disruption in that zone.
So it's not just storing memory, but generating the feeling of memory.
Precisely. That subjective sense of, I know this, even when it's wrong, that's what this symptom kind of highlights about those specific gyri.
Wow. Okay, moving to a different kind of experience. This one's quite dramatic. Seeing visual hallucinations.
Seeing things that aren't there.
Yeah, and at the same time, getting hit with sudden, intense fear.
Oof. That's a powerful combination.
Right. So where do the sources point for that?
Well, it suggests two distinct but crucially interconnected areas. The visual hallucinations naturally point towards the brain's visual processing center. That's the occipital lobe at the back.
Okay, occipital lobe for vision makes sense.
And the intense fear, that points straight to the amygdala.
The amygdala deep inside. And the source even names specifics in the occipital lobe, like the middle occipital and lunatus sulcus. And the anterior occipital sulcus, and then, yeah, the amygdala.
And this is where it gets really interesting, like you said.
Yeah.
Because you've got sensory distortion from one area, the occipital lobe, and this raw emotional response from the amygdala happening together.
It shows they're linked somehow.
Exactly. It highlights that these aren't isolated systems. Sensory input and emotional response are deeply tied, and a symptom like this reveals that network in action, or maybe misfiring together.
It's like the patient's experience shines a spotlight on that connection.
Perfectly put. It illuminates how different regions collaborate to create these complex subjective states.
Okay, let's switch gears to movement. Next up, a patient with tonic muscle stiffening.
Like going rigid.
Yeah, followed by rhythmic jerking in the arms. Sounds very motor-related.
Absolutely. Symptoms like that strongly suggest something's going on with the motor cortex, the brain's command center for voluntary movement.
And the source flags the precentral gyrus.
That's the one. And also the inferior precentral sulcus.
The precentral gyrus. That's the main strip for motor control.
Essentially, yes. It's where the signals to move your muscles voluntarily kick off. So if there's, say, abnormal electrical activity there, you get these uncontrolled outputs, the stiffening, the jerking.
So the symptom confirms its job, basically.
In a very direct way, yeah. It shows what happens when that control signal goes haywire.
Okay, let's look at another perception-related one, but auditory this time. A patient hearing voices or sounds that aren't there.
Auditory hallucinations.
Followed by involuntary head turning.
Right. So hearing things that aren't real points towards the auditory processing areas. And those are mainly located, again, in the temporal lobe.
Ah, back to the temporal lobe. Interesting. It seems to do a lot.
It really does, but different parts handle different things. Here, the source mentions the planum polare.
Okay.
And look, the middle temporal gyrus again.
The same one mentioned with déjà vu.
Yeah, which is fascinating, right? It suggests maybe different kinds of activity in the same broad area or slightly different circuits involving that gyrus.
Or different networks connecting through it.
Could be. This symptom points more to the auditory processing function within that lobe and the head turning. Maybe a reflex, like trying to locate the source of a sound that isn't actually there.
So it shows specialization within the temporal lobe, different neighborhoods, like you said before.
Exactly. Auditory processing here, memory and familiarity over there, even if they're geographically close.
Got it. Okay, now this one sounds complex. Sudden loss of vision in one eye,
Okay, visual loss.
followed by numbness down one whole side of the body.
Whoa. Okay, yeah, that's another great example of symptoms pointing to multiple distinct brain areas.
So vision loss points where? Back to the occipital lobe.
You got it. That's the visual processing hub. And the numbness, the loss of touch sensation down one side, that points to the parietal lobe.
Parietal lobe that handles touch and body sensation.
Touch, temperature, pain, proprioception, knowing where your body is in space.
And the specifics mentioned are the middle occipital gyrus again, and the primary visual cortex for vision, and the intraparietal and parietal transverse sulcus for the sensory part.
And what this really drives home is how the brain processes different senses in different places. Vision in the occipital, touch in the parietal. Even though both are about losing sensation, they map to different zones based on the type of sensation.
Parallel processing pathways.
Exactly. This symptom set really highlights that division of labor.
Okay, following on from numbness, what if it's more specific, like numbness just on one side of the face and in the hand on that same side?
That's different from the whole side numbness. More localized.
Yeah, so what does that suggest?
That points very specifically to the primary somatosensory cortex. That's the main receiving area for touch and body sensations, located in the parietal lobe.
And the source mentions the postcentral gyrus and the superior parietal lobule.
Right. The postcentral gyrus is key here. Think of it like a map of the body laid out across the brain surface.
A sensory map.
Exactly. And some body parts, like the face and hands, have disproportionately large areas dedicated to them on that map because they're so sensitive.
So if the numbness is just face and hand, it strongly suggests the issue is limited to those specific patches of real estate on the postcentral gyrus map.
That's incredible. So the symptom's location on the body tells you the location in the brain.
It's a beautiful example of that somatotopic organization, much more fine-grained than the whole body side numbness we just talked about.
Wild. Okay, next one. Difficulty producing speech. Not understanding, but actually speaking.
Classic symptom. This immediately makes you think about the frontal lobe, specifically an area famous for language production.
Which the source identifies using terms like pars opercularis and pars triangularis, which are parts of Broca's area, right?
Exactly. Broca's area is crucial for the motor planning and execution of speech, getting the words out, forming the sentences smoothly.
So someone might know what they want to say, but struggle to articulate it?
Precisely. It highlights how even something as complex as fluent speech relies on specific motor programming regions in the brain. Okay, let's shift slightly. What about problems with coordination and balance? Feeling clumsy, unsteady.
That symptom profile points strongly towards the cerebellum.
The cerebellum, okay, that's at the back, underneath the main brain lobes.
That's right, tucked away back there. Now, the source also mentions the superior parietal lobule and the angular gyrus.
Which are in the parietal lobe. We heard about the superior parietal lobule with the localized numbness.
Right, and those parietal areas are involved in spatial awareness and integrating sensory information, which is definitely important for guiding movement. But the cerebellum is really the main coordinator.
That's smoothing things out.
Yeah, fine-tuning voluntary movements, maintaining posture, balance, making everything work together fluidly. So impaired coordination, poor balance, that's classic cerebellum territory, even if other areas contribute inputs.
Got it. Cerebellum for coordination. Okay, last set of symptoms from our sources. This one's about emotional instability combined with autonomic dysfunction.
Autonomic dysfunction, so issues with automatic body processes.
Yeah, like heart rate, breathing, digestion, stuff that just happens without conscious thought.
Right, so big emotional swings, plus problems with those basic bodily functions. That combination points towards brain regions involved in regulating our internal world, both conscious feelings and unconscious processes.
And the areas named are the cingulate gyrus and the insular cortex. Not areas you hear about every day, maybe.
Perhaps not as much as, say, the motor cortex, but absolutely crucial. The cingulate gyrus is a big part of the limbic system. Think emotion processing, motivation, regulating behavior.
Okay. And the insular.
The insular cortex, or just insula, is fascinating. It's kind of tucked away deep in the brain. It's a major hub for interoception.
Interoception, meaning?
Sensing your own internal bodily state, feeling your heartbeat, your gut feelings, hunger, thirst, the need to breathe. It integrates all that internal sensory data with your emotions and thoughts.
Wow. So if those areas are affected.
You can see how it could lead to both emotional instability because the ocean regulation circuits are disrupted, and autonomic problems because the areas monitoring and helping to control those internal body states aren't functioning properly.
It connects the physical feeling inside with the emotion.
Thoroughly, these symptoms really reveal the brain's role in linking our internal physical reality with our subjective emotional experience.
Incredible. So we've gone all the way from déjà vu,
Lip smacking,
visual and auditory hallucinations, motor problems, speech difficulty, balance issues,
numbness, localized, and widespread.
and finally, this link between emotion and our basic body functions. Each symptom, like you said, acting like a little pointer to specific gyri, sulci, lobes.
Different spots on the map.
So what does this all mean? Where does this leave us? Well, I mean, what we've really unpacked here is just how powerful symptoms can be as clues. Looking closely at what someone experiences subjectively can point us towards which parts of the brain might be involved and what those parts normally do.
It's like building that functional map, not just by looking at anatomy, but by seeing what happens when specific bits are, let's say, acting up.
Yeah, using the malfunctions to understand the function.
Right. But it's also really important to remember, while these symptoms can point to specific regions, a gyrus here, a sulcus there, the brain works as a massive interconnected network.
It's not just isolated spots.
Definitely not. Often, a symptom is really about a disruption in the communication between areas that usually work together. So understanding the role of individual spots is crucial, absolutely, but the bigger picture is always about how they all interact and connect.
That makes sense. The network is key. Still, it's pretty mind-blowing how specific functions seem to map onto specific structures.
It is. It's testament to the brain's incredible organization.
And it leaves us with, I think, a really cool thought to chew on. Next time you experience something really simple, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, tasting something bitter, hearing a familiar voice, maybe even just that weird flash of déjà vu, just pause and consider that experience. It isn't just happening vaguely in your head. It's happening because specific named parts of your brain structures, like the postcentral gyrus processing that touch, or the insula registering that internal feeling, or the temporal lobe sparking that sense of familiarity, are physically active, firing, doing their job right then.
The physical basis of subjective experience.
Exactly. So what does that incredibly direct link between the physical stuff inside your skull and your entire felt experience of being alive make you wonder about consciousness, about what it means to be you?
A deep question indeed.
Something to ponder. We hope this deep dive into symptoms and brain geography has given you maybe a new angle to think about things.
Keep exploring, keep questioning.
Absolutely. We'll catch you on the next dive.